And we're back with a preview of Monday's final debate, all on foreign policy. Comes as the Associated Press reports that the CIA knew militants were linked to the attack on the U.S. consulate in Libya just 24 hours after it happened. Republicans have also seized on an interview the president gave to Jon Stewart last night.
Even you would admit it was not the optimal response, at least to the American people, as far as us all being on the same page.
Well, here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
If 4 Americans get killed, it's not optimal.
Right.
And we're going to fix it.
Right.
And
all of it.
All of it.
The optimal line, of course, is very regrettable and makes me a little sad. But for him to say that every piece of information that they laid out to the American people is one of the most disingenuous statements I've ever heard.
Now, Governor Romney has also had some missteps abroad on his own. He received a lot of criticism from Britain over his comments about the Summer Olympics and from Palestinians when he attributed the economic disparity between that group and Israel's to cultural differences. All right, let's bring in Nicholas Kristof, columnist for the New York Times. And Nicholas, thanks for joining us today. Nick, a new Pew poll, which you've probably have seen so far, it shows that Governor Romney has closed the gap, really, on many areas on foreign policy. Here are the numbers right here, where the president was leading earlier. And with all the moving parts that we've been seeing lately, who is more equipped, you think, to win this debate come Monday?
I think that Obama is in much better shape on this. The problem is that Mitt Romney really doesn't seem deeply engaged on foreign policy issues. It's not something that he cares a lot about, that he's particularly interested in. And I mean, what really struck me in this regard was when he was talking about his own Iran policy. Speaking to George Stephanopoulos, he forgot it. He messed up his own Iran policy. And it seemed to me that, in other words, lots of candidates don't write their own foreign policy, briefing notes, but he hadn't even seemed to read his own. And I think that's going to be emblematic of a problem for the governor that is going to probably show up in the debate.
Do you think the winner here will be the person, the candidate that comes up with more substance on these issues, or is able to make these ideas, which are not often talked about, with the economy being the top issue right now, the candidate that can really make it tangible, as I was discussing at the top of the show?
Yeah, I don't think there's always a strong relationship between the candidate who speaks with greatest depth about these issues and the one who comes across as the winner. And for example, I think the Benghazi issue has gotten real traction. And I think that Governor Romney has done a pretty good job of raising real questions about that. There's no question that the administration didn't provide adequate security in the first place and kind of muffed its handling of it afterward. But at the end of the day, this is something that is decided at a much lower level than the White House, and you always have these different reports. So it seems to me sort of unfair the success, the traction that has gotten.
Nick, before I get to China, I wanted to ask you then, so how does the president come up with a better answer come Monday?
Well, I think he has to, do what he said he was going to do, which is lay it all out. That yes, clearly there was inadequate security. In retrospect, that's obvious. But this is something that never reached the White House. This is something decided maybe at the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State level, far below the White House. And
so just be clear and open about what you're saying. Just lay out the process of what happened.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that President Obama is in pretty good position to talk about foreign policy.
You noticed in the last debate, we heard China being brought up several times, and that it resonates with certain voters, yet it's a very complex issue. 3 of the perhaps major issues related to what might be brought up to the debate is how China pegs its currency. We have the issue of manufacturing and jobs leaving the United States, and then we've got the intellectual property rights, which is really tied in to Mitt Romney's argument about creating 12 million jobs. Now, the president said he would take on many of these issues before his administration. Has he?
Well, I think that Governor Romney has a fair point in that initially in the Obama administration, it tried to reach out to China. It may have been too soft, and China perceived that as weakness and kind of walked over the administration. But that led to a real revision of policy in Washington and a tougher line. And I think the Obama administration learned from its mistakes there. Indeed, the Chinese currency, the renminbi, has been appreciating, especially if you take inflation into account. Now, I do think that's kind of a harder argument to get over to the public. There's this deep frustration if you're in Ohio or Wisconsin and a troubled economy, and so that argument by Romney may get traction, but I don't think at the end of the day that it's that it's a very fair one.
And the demand of one country to its lender that they would like their lender to do certain things also is something that might be considered in that debate. Nick Kristof, I wish we could talk more, and we'll have that opportunity, I hope, on Monday or Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Look forward to that. Sure.
All righty.